Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Deshaun Watson, possible trade situations, what we think about the situation there in Houston, how it's kind of played out with the Texans between Deshaun Watson and ownership there. But before we jump into that, please hit that subscribe button if you are new to our channel or haven't already. Also, smash that like button. We definitely appreciate all your guys' support. We have the best viewers in the world, so keep supporting us the way you have been. It's been absolutely awesome. So now, Austin, jumping into Deshaun Watson here, obviously is not very happy there in Houston. It sounds like he is almost going to demand his way out. If you are the Houston Texans, what is your kind of plan of action here? Are you trying to mend things with Deshaun Watson, or do you start actively looking to shop him?
There's no way to mend it. I just don't think there's a pathway to do that. I think they've gone past the point of return. So you put yourself in a really weird position where you're obviously going to have to trade him, and you will likely not get back what he's probably worth. I think a lot of teams will be willing to pay quite a bit, but having that franchise quarterback, it's hard to put a price on that. But looking at the potential suitors, we have obviously the Chicago Bears could be one. We have the Indianapolis Colts. We have the New York Jets. A lot of other teams like Washington could be in on him, San Francisco possibly, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, but New Orleans will not have the money to do so. So they're completely out of the question at this point. Just kind of looking around the league, like Minnesota, Detroit, a lot of basically over half the league should be interested in him, right? But now we have to look at the actual potential suitors in terms of who has the assets to give it up and the fit wise and, culture wise, where do we see him fitting, right? So if you were the Texans in this situation, you are obviously going to be looking for the best comp. Who has that, right? The New York Jets obviously have potentially the best asset on the table right now with that number 2 overall pick. In addition, you would be expecting at least another first rounder, if not 2 more first rounders, and then a couple of mid-round picks to supplement it. That's, in my opinion, where I see the value for Deshaun Watson, but it's going to be interesting to see with him forcing himself out of there, if that's obviously going to drop the demand versus what it would have been.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing also that could be in play here is obviously Miami's been linked to Deshaun Watson a little bit. They have 2 first-round picks this year, 2 second-round picks this year as well. They have a ton of assets. I want to ask you quick, if you're the Houston Texans and while you're going through this process of finding a suitor for Deshaun Watson, does a player like Sam Darnold or Tua Tagovailoa give a little bit more value into that trade? Or would you rather just get more draft pick comp instead of taking back one of those quarterbacks?
I think they do play a valuable part in a trade just because I think in that kind of deal, they would be undervalued more when you're talking the bigger overall picture. You're looking at all the draft picks and then we'll throw in our quarterback as well. I think that is less value than a straight up trade of your quarterback. So I think that's where you could potentially win over some value in that sense. Obviously, if they're able to acquire Tua and Tua can figure it out next year, that would be a phenomenal deal for the Texans if they could leverage Tua in that deal with multiple first and a couple mid-round picks. Absolutely, that would be a home run move for Houston in that situation.
Right, and the other tough thing with Houston as well is right now Miami actually owns their pick. That situation obviously unfolded from Bill O'Brien trading multiple firsts for Laramie Tunsil, then moving DeAndre Hopkins over to Arizona. They've lost a lot of their assets, actually. So the tough thing for the Houston Texans right now is if you move on from Deshaun Watson, it's not like you're going to have a huge, bountiful collection of picks to really start building this thing back up. You're actually going to have to move Watson to almost get back to the base level of compensation and draft picks that you should have had you not made some other moves. They're going to be in a weird state. Possibly players like Laramie Tunsil could find their way out as well during this process. It's really going to possibly get messy there for the Houston Texans. If there were 2 teams that stick out to you right now at this point, which 2 teams would it be that Deshaun Watson could be playing for next season?
Like we had mentioned, Miami's definitely number 1 for me just because of the assets they have, how close they are to actually winning and, really making a run in the postseason. I think in terms of all the teams that are looking to acquire him, they have the best chance in terms of overall roster construction and just where they're at as a whole to really make a big postseason run. So They are number one to me. I think another team that's very close in terms of their overall roster construction is Indianapolis, but I'm not sure if they have, they don't have that top tier asset. Obviously, they have their first round pick, but they don't have a quarterback to supplement back like the Jets and the Dolphins do. But I mean, they are a really, really good location in terms of having that offensive line already in place. Something Deshaun has struggled with his entire career is just not having an O-line. But I mean, you have one of the best O-lines in the entire NFL already ready and built. And I think Indianapolis has gotten to the point where they're ready to kind of push their chips to the middle of the table. They want to win. I think they could run that division if they pull a trade for Deshaun Watson.
Right. That's definitely the big question here, too, is you already have some teams with the built infrastructure or some teams with a whole bunch of assets that they're willing to move on from a couple to try and get to that infrastructure point. Deshaun Watson, obviously, so great. For me as a Jets fan, that's the one thing is I'd be all in on giving up pick 2 Darnold and maybe the 2 Rams first round picks that we have as well. This year, one next year, and a little bit more, even if that's what we have to do. That's how special of a quarterback Deshaun Watson is. That's how much of an improvement he is, in my opinion, over a guy like Sam Darnold. Now a question I have for you as a Jags fan yourself. You guys have pick number 1 and basically the rights to Trevor Lawrence in this draft. Would you be comfortable moving pick 1, a couple other draft picks for Deshaun Watson? What's your thoughts on that? Obviously, you guys still have to build a bit. That plays into it. But what's your thoughts?
The initial reaction is going to be no. I would not feel comfortable. One, because you have to also give up other assets to build around, in order to acquire him outside of that number 1 pick, very likely. But looking at it as a whole, I think that there's a possibility Trevor Lawrence is better than Deshaun Watson. Plus, you have 5 years of very, very cheap control on Trevor Lawrence. That gives you a 5-year window to really build your team. So me personally, I would not do that.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand. That's the big difference here between pick 1 and pick 2 in this draft. Obviously, me, a Jets fan, at pick 2, I'd feel much more comfortable moving on from pick 2 to get Watson. I totally understand why pick 1 with Trevor Lawrence. That's a much tougher thing to sell, especially with giving up extra comp, which is what I would assume would have to be the case as well, just because Watson is proven in the NFL. But it's just going to be a very interesting thing to monitor. If you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe. We will be keeping our eyes on this Deshaun Watson news, where he could possibly be going. We will have other videos on the channel covering this, all other breaking news in the NFL, playoff games, and also NBA and MLB content. So if that's something you guys are interested in, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.